Hey, Deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
I think you guys are great together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good fit.
No, absolutely. It's crazy how all the couples here, like, they just make sense.
You guys having sex yet?
Oh my God, you're really getting into it.
Yeah, I commented on this before that there is a way to ask if it feels appropriate and fair that is not so forceful, right? You could, because I think I've been speculating that he's asking because he's personally curious and he's comparing. And there is some validity or some health in that question or that impulse to wonder if what he and what Lauren are feeling and doing is normal, especially because I think from his point of view, it looks like a lot of the couples are doing well. And since he's never been in a relationship before, he wonders, is this a bad sign or a good sign or a non-sign? I think that's what he's doing. I also think that it's possible he's engaging in this comparison as a callback or an indication of his need to comparatively be superior to others, not in like a nefarious way, but in a way of preserving what shred of self-esteem that he might have. I'm speculating completely about that. I recognize. So it's just an hypothesis that I would pursue if I were to treat someone like Dave in my office. But there's another way he could ask this question of leading with his need and saying, so I've been asking people, and you don't have to answer this question, but Lauren and I have not had sex yet, and I am just wondering what other people are doing because I haven't been in a relationship before, and I'm just curious. So, you don't have to answer this question, but are the two of you having sex yet? I think I think that would at least be better than just blasting, and then she reacts, I think, the way that people do. It was like, wow, that's a direct question.
I'm curious because, we haven't yet. You don't have to answer either.
Okay, that's good. So lead with that, Dave, and that's a good impulse. I'm glad to see that because that is what I would hope he would feel and want to say. I'm just like, well, I'm asking because we haven't had sex yet. It's implied, I think, that he's wondering if he's normal. I've talked about this before, that for Dave, I think he's emerging into awareness and vulnerability, and he isn't fully comprehending what's happening for him. And so when he says things, it's sort of half-baked, right? It's like implied what is going on, the vulnerability, but he doesn't know it and doesn't know how to communicate it because it's not his way, I think. Like when he was in the pods and he's crying about having to break up with Molly or commit to Lauren and worrying about his sister, the way he talked about it, it was on the vague side and non-specific side of thing. It could have been more specific. Anyway, he doesn't have to be specific, and I have no idea if I'm saying this right, but I'm glad that he has those impulses of just like, well, we haven't had sex either. That's why I'm asking. And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. You can lead with that.
You don't want to.
No. Like, I'm very, sex
You don't have to
positive,
ask. Yeah,
very, open, whatever.
Yeah.
So, we've hung out.
Yeah, okay.
We've hung out.
Okay, cool.
Now, I will say being sex positive is positive, depending on how people are defining it. But that doesn't dictate that you have to talk about it all the time, for sure. Now, being sex negative could contribute to one not talking about it at all. But being sex positive doesn't dictate you have to, by definition, disclose everything that's happened and everything that you plan on doing.
That's all I need to know.
But no, I'm curious about that too. But you just had the balls to say it.
Somebody had to bring it up.
I am curious though. I know that you were talking to Lauren and Molly.
Okay, I sort of was focusing on something else, but I don't know if it matters to me, but I think it matters for how, because it looks like they're on some sort of theme for Dave. But I didn't catch whether or not she indicated what had happened, and she doesn't have to, but I want to catch that to maybe take a guess as to what Dave's mindset is at this point?
Sex
You don't have to
positive,
ask. Yeah,
like
you don't
very
have to.
like open, whatever.
Yeah.
So like we've like hung out.
Yeah, okay.
We've hung out.
Okay, the verbatim words, I would have interpreted it as a hint that they have not had sex, but the way she was kind of moving says otherwise. I can't know, and it doesn't matter. But so I'm trying to guess as to what Dave is receiving, and I don't know. I could see him interpreting it as they haven't. I could also see him interpreting it as he had. I could see him interpreting it as, well, she doesn't want to say, so I'm not going to press it.
But no, I'm curious about that too. But you just had the balls to say it.
Somebody had to bring it up.
I am curious though. I know that you were talking to Lauren and Molly. What is it about Lauren that you're like, hell yeah, it's Lauren?
When Lauren finally told me how she felt, and for me to figure out what to do on my own, that's when everything kind of clicked for me.
All right, they're editing it, and the song cue is coming in real hard, so I'm guessing we're not going to hear the full conversation, but I'm really glad that Monica asked this, and it is good for Dave to be asked this and be able to explore it, but I did not comprehend what he said, so let's break this down.
What is it about Lauren that you're like, hell yeah, it's Lauren?
When Lauren finally told me how she felt, and for me to figure out what to do on my own, that's when everything kind of clicked.
Okay, I think I am comprehending. He's saying that when Lauren really laid it all out there and said, hey, I am choosing you. I want to be with you. I want to get engaged, without necessarily saying the word engaged. And I am really, really hoping that you choose me. And it's upsetting me that you're dating other people, that kind of stuff. And I know that some people would interpreted all that as her being manipulative or something. And it didn't look that way to me. It could have been. And it doesn't, and I talked about this at the time, that Lauren wasn't always following the general guideline while in the lounge of not talking shit about other people just because they're dating the person that you like. You know, it's not a good look. And on the scale of things, she wasn't really in that direction. She was the person on the show that was the most like that. I mean, one could argue that Madison exhibited something like that with Meg. But anyway, it looked to me like Lauren was having a normal feeling and was just imagine what it would feel like to be falling deeply in love and wanting to spend the rest of your life with someone while you're in the room with someone that might actually run away with your person. It would, it'd be stressful. And I think under the circumstances for Lauren, it was within that context anyway. So he is saying that when Lauren really was adamant, and he would talk about this in the pods about how Molly wasn't doing that, and Molly wasn't doing that, right? And it's still unclear if Molly was really feeling it. She would talk about, similar to Dave, that she had never been in a close, or Dave has been in the past, but it's been a while, and it's been, according to his account of the relationships he's been in, they have been pretty surface and not deep or something. I can't remember the word, less involved. Molly said she's never had any boyfriend, which it's hard to know exactly where that line is for her. But she, after being broken up with by Dave, goes back into the lounge, talks with Lauren. And I commended Molly back then for in that dark place, difficult place of loss and being dumped, her first reaction was to apologize to Lauren, essentially, for talking about Dave in the lounge, which arguably she didn't have to apologize for, especially on the heels of being dumped, especially to the person that he dumped her for, Lauren. So I commended Molly for that. But in that moment of emotion, there was no indication that Molly was hurting because she was that invested in the relationship. But anyway, it's likely she was invested. It wasn't the sort of person that wears her heart on her sleeve. That's just my guess. I can't know. Anyway, so he is saying the way that it feels for him, I think this is really important and is consistent with other things that he has said, that what he's being asked by Monica is, when did you really feel it? Like, yes, it's Lauren. I want to be with her. Now, maybe he would have a lot of things to say here, but it is consistent that this is as far as it goes for him. Not that this is a problem with him, but it's an indicator, I think, of he has a lot of room to grow and experience intimacy so that he can feel all the things and not be at this early phase of, well, I felt very loved. Well, he's not even saying that. I felt wanted, right? That is the way I would describe the way that he is saying it now and the way he said it in the past of Molly isn't showing that she deeply wants me. And Lauren showed that in the pods. And that's when I know she's the one. Now, I think I said this before, that if that's as far as it goes, then that's a concern because you want to know in your heart and your needs if you want this person, right? If you only choose someone based on how much they want you, then you never stop and say, do I want them? And there's a possibility that that is the state of things. There's another possibility that he does want Lauren and wanted her in the pods, but was too not used to being vulnerable or doesn't know how he really feels, that he's focusing on this part of the overall equation. But I wouldn't be surprised, given everything that we've seen, that if I were to treat someone like Dave, that the hypothesis would, possibly pan out with this individual, this hypothetical person, that due to early childhood lack of attunement, neglect, abandonments, or at the very least cold parenting, that he has a number of defenses that he has engaged in his whole life, and that's resulted in a lot of things, including a lack of experience of intimacy and closeness and vulnerability, but a deep, deep need for it. And also a lack of self-awareness around it because of not only just lack of experience, but also people who go through that and develop, early childhood and develop a defense of pathological independence and self-reliance and possible edging in the direction of narcissism, at the very least avoidant attachment style, that they have a hard time even accessing their feelings, even though they're happening, right? So for him, his answer is consistent with the past, and he's because what you would hope he would say maybe would be this, in addition to other things, of when I look into her eyes, or when I envision us together, or when we are just talking, and it just feels so good. I just want to spend all my time with her. Or, when we're physically intimate, it just feels right. And I don't want to be with anyone else. There's a lot of different things people say. Like what Virginia said was that when Devin isn't in the room with her, she is thinking, where's Devin? And I want him here with me. Something like that, right? That's not what he's saying. He's solely focused on, she wanted me. That's when I knew it was right.
It's fine, we'll make it work.
Like, I've been asking people, like, have you had sex yet? And they're like,
So it's just
whoa,
kinda-
okay, Dave. Monica gave me like, whoa, okay.
Have you guys had sex yet? Okay.
Okay, so Dave is modifying his question, pulling back a little bit, being more passive, which is a good idea. He's saying, I've been asking everyone if you've had sex with. That's a big question. Like Monica said that, and that's a passive way of saying, I kind of want to ask it about you, but I don't want to cause harm the way that I think I did to Monica. I don't think Monica was put off by the question. She seemingly was indicating that she was, she didn't answer the question. And I don't, sometimes people are polite in the moment, especially on camera. So maybe she didn't appreciate it. But overall, I think Monica was cool with it and asserted herself by not really answering the question and feels good about that, I hope. Or I don't know what I hope. I hope that she feels however she feels and feels that she's okay with feeling that feeling, whether it was being put off or not. Anyway, so then Taylor steps into that space. Well, let's see. So he's passively asking, and then she's asking. And then he says no. So, okay, he is really on a mission going around.
Like, how about you guys here?
We've only kissed. What I've done in the past is maybe not been extra cautious in that department.
Yeah.
Of waiting or taking my time,
Right.
and it hasn't worked.
Natural.
All right, so we're hearing from Taylor that they have quote unquote only kissed. And that is interesting because, I mean, it doesn't indicate good things or bad things. It could, but it's not a strong indicator of anything, in my opinion. People could maybe not even kiss, and I wouldn't know necessarily what that meant as far as their viability as a couple moving forward. There'd be no way to know. But it is interesting because I have been wondering if Taylor and Danielle either know individually and are not saying, or know as a couple or unconsciously that they're not really dedicated or into each other. You know, that whole thing with Instagram with Taylor, I don't know, but it seemingly was an indicator that, you know, Taylor just wasn't feeling it, which is fine. And it's also fine if she's not conscious of that. It's a whirlwind of activity. Anyway, so at least now it depends on the kissing, right? If it is making out for 2 hours on the couch and you're rolling around on top of each other and next to each other, that's one version of we've only kissed. And then there's other versions where what did I hear? Is it in France? Because I think I asked, what do you call French kissing? And they use the word for shoveling with your tongue or something, tongue shoveling. So, you know, maybe they haven't even shoveled with their tongue at any part of their partner's body. And so therefore, it's that, which would also be fine. There's whatever, but it's data. And that's different from the others, you know, for Dave and Lauren, at least what I think Dave is saying is that Dave and Lauren haven't had sex, but they've done other things. And it doesn't say anything. Why? The cast is basically indicating that they're glad to talk about it. And I think potentially inadvertently, because I don't know what Dave's mission. He talked earlier in a one-on-one as to why he's doing it, and he just said something that was general and not really specific as to why he's doing it. But I am guessing and hearing that the couples might feel insecure about the fact that they're not having sex yet. And I think it's great that Dave is asking and confirming that. But I think it could have backfired in that there could have been some couples that were and some couples that weren't, and the couples that weren't could feel weird and different or something. I don't know. But it is interesting for someone to go on a mission, because often these conversations are more organic and there's joking around about it. And there's pros and cons to that too that I've been over.
Actually,
So
you
we're
want to
also
like
gonna-
do something
Yeah,
different.
it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know if I have much to say. I forgot to comment on what she was saying, that in the past she would have sex quicker, and in this instance she wants to go slower. And there's a lot of different wisdoms, both pro and con, around this. I don't know where she's operating from. It's totally fine. There's no red flags there at all. And it is something to think about. And everyone has their own sense of that. And I guess one thing to highlight is, well, there's a lot of things that I could talk about in terms of this concern, at least of the clients that I've worked with. On one hand, for some people, they will have sex quicker than, well, they will notice that with people that they are pretty sure they're not going to last very long with, that they will have sex with quicker because they just want to have a good time and they want to enjoy themselves with this person and not have to wait, right? They want to have an intense, all-encompassing enjoyment, you know, the date and the talking and the laughing and the sexing and all that stuff. And if they never see the person again, then, you know, that's the end of that. And so you might as well get it all over with early. And then There's another perspective that if you meet your person or what you think to be your person, you would wait a little longer, not necessarily as a way to contrast with those other, but people can do that too. But they might wait because they want to savor things, or they want to make sure that they are compatible or in love. Because when you make things physical, then it can cloud things for some people, not everyone, but it can potentially cloud things and make people think that, are my feelings toward this person like love outside of lust, or is it just lust and I'm convincing myself so if you wait, for some people that can help to clarify that. It depends. We are animals. We're not purely intellectual beings. So one could argue that physical intimacy for most people is just a part of the whole thing. Not that you have to have sex right away, but anyway. And I think that other people will have Madonna whore complex issues. Even women can have that about themselves, maybe, and maybe even about their partner, that you don't marry whores. You marry Madonnas, the purity versus slut or something, and you have sex with the slutty people, and you marry the pure people, and to dichotomize that and keep them in separate camps, and how that destructive idea, very limiting. Now, might that work out in some people's lives legitimately? Maybe, I guess, but to pigeonhole and to be sex negative and to require your long-term partner to be pure in your cultural religious sense is ridiculous and extremely harmful and all this stuff. Anyway, so sometimes people will, upon meeting their person or what they think to be their person, will wait regarding sex, regarding that, which in the end, maybe it's fine, because as long as they are listening to themselves and their partner, they'll get there. But it certainly wouldn't be a viable way of seeing the world and yourself. But anyway, so Dave's asking around, and it is notable because I feel like off the top of my head, and I've said I didn't take notes on this because why, but from my memory, nearly every season that we've seen this conversation, I think we always do, the couples on average will have had sex by this point. That when they meet up. And sometimes they meet up the next day, right? Like they arrive, they spend the night together, and then it's the very next day. And, maybe some of them are lying, but maybe not. It didn't seem like that to me. Seemingly, most of the time, if there's usually 5 couples, 4 will say, yeah, we've had sex, and 1 might say that they haven't, that kind of thing. Again, it doesn't matter. Everyone is making their individual choices. And to say that one is better or more healthy or a better indication is a ridiculous way of seeing the world. So, but it is, I guess, interesting that Dave is illuminating this.
He's like, yeah, he's so nice.
He is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lauren's great.
She is great.
Love
Lauren,
her.
she moves a lot at night. She pees a lot.
Oh,
She pees every
during the
fucking,
night.
hour.
Okay.
No, not
do you
just
snore?
during the night.
No.
A little
Maybe
bit.
Keep her up.
I do.
Yeah.
I will say, I haven't been reacting to this, but I will now, that Dave is really focused, and, it's fine, but it is notable that he's really focused on annoying each other in bed while they sleep, even how he might annoy her, Lauren. I don't think I reacted to this conversation. He was really worried that he would snore and bother Lauren. He said that it's always been a concern of his. He's always been worried about that. And for Lauren the next morning to say, no, you don't snore that much, it's fine, was a huge relief for him. And I think that this is in the camp that I have been hypothesizing that, one, he just hasn't had a lot of close relationships, and maybe he's had a number of casual sex relationships, but it almost sounds like not that as well, which is fine. But there's a possibility that experience-wise and therefore developmentally wise, he is a much younger person, which is fine. There's no, people can put off whatever they want to put off. There's no mandate here. But that he has a fairly adolescent, not in an insulting way to him, but an adolescent way of understanding or focusing on certain things, Now, should people be concerned about things that bother partners while they're sleeping? Yeah, snoring included, for sure. But he seems really focused on it. His snoring, and she warned him that she moves around a lot. He woke up the next morning and said, "You don't actually move around that much." And he followed up by saying, "You go pee a lot." And so she's like, "Yeah," which I wonder what that has to do with. So I don't know. There could be some minor indications of sleep issues for him, either physically or sleep traumas in his history of having been woken up suddenly as a kid, or it's really a stretch. But now, should people be concerned? Yeah, now that I think about it, maybe Dave is just the sort of dude who just talks about things that are on his mind and doesn't either care about social convention about not talking about these things, or doesn't know that there are social conventions about these things. I don't know. What do you think? Because he is being appreciated by the other cast members, even the women, that he is bringing up this topic. They're like, "Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up. It's important to talk about." Because, I don't think I'm very much like Dave, but I do have sometimes this quality, for better or for worse, of asking questions in my personal life. Like, I always just think back to even when I was in high school, before I even knew I wanted to be a therapist, that at like a party and everyone's, drinking out of a red Solo cup from a keg, and I'm having a conversation with a few people that I have initiated some, maybe not super deep because I was a kid, but deeper than typical. And like people would come up and be like, "Hey," and then they don't, "Wait, you guys are talking about intense stuff. I'm going to leave," that kind of stuff. Anyway. So it's interesting. And I wonder what that is. I don't know. It could just be a quality. But I also wonder if it has to do with what I was saying earlier in terms of him emerging into vulnerability, but still having some worries that enact the defense of comparison and needing to get out ahead of that. It kind of has that look to it. All right, well, let's adjourn there. If you want to support what I am doing here and what us with Psychology in Seattle, it's not just me. It's mainly me on camera. But anyway, if you want to support what Psychology in Seattle is doing, then by becoming a member on YouTube, by clicking the join button below, is a very material way to do that, or by becoming a patron. And only if you care to, and you can afford it, of course. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.